Okay. Hello, folks. This is Hari Lamba, and I'm in East Richmond Heights and welcoming you to the inaugural session of the Open Climate University. This is basically an inaugural session which is meant to get feedback from you and in order to try and define what sort of educational activity I should engage in. I have published a book called Brighter Climate Futures that got published the 1st of September last year, and I have been promoting the book quite a bit, and the transformation plan in the book. The book is actually the vehicle for promoting the global transformation plan. But then I thought it would be very worthwhile to start an educational activity first oriented towards high school students. And so let me kind of go around the room and ask people to give just a brief introduction as to your name and where you're located, and just briefly your motivation in being in just a brief thing on your background. Let's get started. Do you want to get started? Meera, you want to start first?
Okay. Hello, nice to meet you all.
Next time you do that, please unmute yourself when you introduce yourself.
Nice to meet everyone. My name is Nantaya Everway. I met Harry during a school interview, and we've become very good friends. And I really enjoy working with him and helping him through this opportunity to, promote climate education.
Thank you, Meera. I'm going to go from the top of the screen. Walt, you want to go ahead and go next?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I guess you could say I've been involved with climate activities since the 70s, mostly solar and hydrogen. And at the moment, I'm particularly interested in ammonia as a hydrogen carrier so that it could be used as fuel rather than just as fertilizer. So Harry and I met about a year or two ago, and we have some common interests, and that's why I'm here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Walt. Jeff, did you want to go next?
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I know Harry from the Sierra Club. I live in Wheaton, Illinois, and Harry used to live in this area. And but I've been involved with environmental issues pretty much my whole life, professionally, working for federal government and state government. And I'm retired now, but still very active. I'm actually not fully retired. I'm now a Forest Preserve Commissioner in DuPage County, an elected position. But a lot of environmental activism since, I think probably goes back to when I was a kid living in the woods. We had 7 acres of woods, so I understood nature. But and I've been involved with climate issues in recent years, trying to get people interested in energy efficiency and things like that. And very much interested in the human aspect of this. How do you can't argue with people about facts because that just seems to, there's a human element to this problem in addition to the technical stuff I've been dealing with. So it's interesting, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm always eager for more conversation.
Thanks, Jeff. Steve Hoffman, you want to go next?
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Hoffman. I'm in Concord, California, and I teach high school English and U.S. history at Middle College High School. We're a high school located on the college campus at Contra Costa College. And let's see, I'm an avid hiker. We're going to go hiking in Mount Diablo right after this. And for the past 7 years, I've spent my summers working for the National Park Service and UC Denver with their Teacher Ranger program. So environmental education is a very important part of what I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Haley Solis, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm Haley. I'm a high school student at Hercules High. And trail, and especially because it was connected to church, it would have been really easy for me to just lose all of my.
Excuse me, Christina?
Church. So for me, the church has stood for three major things.
Okay, sorry, Haley. You can go.
Oh, okay. I see next on the screen, Linda. That's it. Linda, do
Yeah, I can go.
Sure, go ahead. Let us know.
Hi, my name's Linda, and I'm a student at Middle College High School, and I live in Richmond, California.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Linda. Next is Caitlin Nguyen. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Nguyen and I'm a sophomore at Middle College High School. I have a passion for plants and animals and I'm here because I'm pretty concerned about our future and the climate. Things aren't going so well and I want to learn about how I can help the world.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next is Christina Deptula. Christina has been my social media chairperson ever since we got started the middle of last year. Christina, you want to unmute yourself and?
Oh, excuse me?
Yeah, Christina, go ahead. I can hear you. Cannot hear you too well, Christina. You want to get closer to a mic?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, yes, thank you very much. I'm going to have to go, but this was a wonderful discussion, and thank you so much for sharing, and I was so glad to be part of this. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, and I enjoyed the book. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Christina has been helped me with the social media campaign that I did for the first time in my life. I did a professionally oriented social media campaign. And so thank you, Christina, for enabling me to do that.
Yes, thank you very much. I've enjoyed being part of this book's journey, and I totally look forward to learning more about climate and the environment.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you. Next is Cynthia Chiao-Sit. Cynthia? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cynthia, and my last name is pronounced Chaya-Sit. I'm currently a junior at Middle College, which is located in Richmond or San Pablo. And I'm really interested in photography and like nature, so I like to go on hikes and stuff like that. The reason why I joined the inauguration is just to learn more about climate change, just because I've always been interested in ways I could help. So I feel like joining this inauguration would just help me further understand the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jennifer Delgado. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm a junior at Middle College High School. I live in
Want to get closer to the mic, Jennifer? Or maybe increase the volume of your.
Can you hear me now?
Sure. Okay, a little better. Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my mic right now.
Oh, that's okay. Why don't you just unmute? Go ahead and speak. Oh, I guess she's muted. Jennifer, can you hear us?
I think I have it now. Does it work now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm a junior at Middle College High School, and I mainly joined this meeting because I want to learn more about climate change. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, we have Leslie Purcell, who's from a very strong activist from our area. Leslie, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I'm actually in Ventura, California, and I'm co-chair with the Jim Stewart of the Sierra Club's Energy and Climate Committee. So that's how I got to know Hari and find out about his great book and his work. And I'm very inspired by all you young folks being here too. That makes me feel so much more hopeful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, I've been active in the Sierra Club quite a bit, active in one of the committees, and then also in the Energy Climate Committee, a listserv at the California level, and then also at the local East Bay level. We try and do some activities, and hopefully those will provide us with opportunities. Let me get started, and I guess we've spent 15 minutes with the introduction. I'm going to try and restrict my total talk to about 20 minutes, and with that, after that, we can get into some feedback. I have a flip chart, and we can use that to get your feedback. Climate change is a big challenge to us, and as you might all know, and so after having talked about it for many years, I realized that I thought I understood how we could do it globally, and that's why I started writing the book and published a book called Brighter Climate Futures and started engaging in that activity. For the young folks, I would say is a word of caution here to begin with is, as you proceed in your activism, try not to be confrontational. We have to try and start convincing people. There's always going to be people who are on the other side of the spectrum who will be trying to confuse you, and possibly argue with you. So in each of your activities, whether it's at home with your parents or whether it's in the political spectrum, just try to understand, try to convince. And I think there's an ethos developing that we actually can start to change this. And more companies and nations are kind of realizing that, it just won't work for us to continue with business as usual. And so there's a lot of positive momentum building for climate change solutions. And the beauty of all it is, life can be maybe 10 to 100 times better. So all of the talk about us going backwards and to the Stone Age and so forth, all of that, don't listen to that. There are enormous opportunities. And as we proceed with all this, I want to make you aware of all the opportunities that there are, and opportunities for technological opportunities, business opportunities, social opportunities, political opportunities. There's scope for tremendous amount of innovation. And this whole activity offers ways. We just have to get used to doing things differently. And if we can use to get things differently, we will have a good life. We do have the challenge of making sure that, once the big business interests realize that there's money to be made here, they're going to be jumping in. And so the challenge is, how do we get the people in the lower strata of society, communities, business persons, people looking for employment, how can you help this through energy democracy and just transition, help these people at the lowest rungs of the economic ladder? That's the big challenge that I see. But anyways, so I will get started with my talk. I'll share my screen, and we'll try and do that for no longer than 20 minutes. Let me share my screen, and I'll share the PowerPoint I prepared. especially for this occasion. Okay. Can you folks see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For just maybe 15 minutes, if you could mute yourselves, that would be good. That way, if there's any disturbances coming in, we can that cannot create a distraction. Okay. So this is Open Climate University. It's open, it's free. I intend to keep it as free as long as I can until the point where if it becomes more popular than, or more people want it, then there might be just a small fee just to try and manage this activity. But it is so that we may have brighter climate futures. I know that Christina and I thought about a lot of titles. There was like From Armageddon to Paradise and all kinds of different titles that we thought about. But then we said, we need, in this day of doom and gloom, we need something uplifting. And so we chose Brighter Climate Futures. That means if we participate and do these activities, our climate futures will be bright. And this is brought to you by me. Let me see if I can take this to the full screen level. Yeah, okay, is that a little better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So this is the book that I put together after about a year's worth of effort. And it's called Brighter Climate Futures, A Global Energy, Climate, and Ecosystem Transformation by myself. And I would say that I would encourage all of you to get a copy of the book. If you want, if you email me your postal address, I will mail you a complimentary copy. But I'd like all of you to have a copy of the book. It has 13 chapters in it, covering all the way from the status, the global plan, detailed global energy, climate, and ecosystem plan, and then plans for carbon sinks, how do we, restore different things and so forth. And I'll talk about all those things in this talk. And disaster risk reduction, detailed plans for the US, for California, for China, for India, and all the big emitters, the nations that are big in carbon emissions. Please do make it a point to get the book or send me your postal address and I will mail you a complimentary copy. In this Open Climate University, all the students that come, I will mail them complimentary copies of the book. All right. I was actually going to be a little bit dramatic at this point. We are about to take off on an exciting journey, and it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome to Spaceship Earth. Our spaceship Earth is going around the sun. We are spinning at the equator at about 1,000 miles per hour, and we are shooting through space at 67,000 miles per hour around the sun. The reason, the beauty of our planet Earth is that it's at an angle of 23.5 degrees to the ecliptic, which is the plane of this orbit. And this angle, as we go around the sun shines at different points in the seasons, shines more on different parts of the Earth. And this gives us our 4 seasons. And also, it drives through the air and water masses, it drives the weather and the climate of this planet. We are just the right distance from the sun in order to be not too hot and not too cool. We are just the right size of a planet so that we can hold on, the gravity can hold on to the atmosphere so that we have an atmosphere. Mars is too small, it's too cold, it is not able to hold on to its atmosphere. Venus is too close, the same size as the Earth, but it has an atmosphere, but it is too close, so all its water has boiled off and it has a runaway greenhouse effect. So we are in a very fortunate situation, and let's keep it from getting to, a worse situation than we've been given. Why is the air inside a greenhouse hot? Sunlight comes in, it comes to the ground, and something funny happens to it. The whole solar spectrum actually changes as emitted light, and the emitted light has more of the infrared spectrum in it, more heat in it, and in this case, the greenhouse glass traps the heat. So that's why the greenhouse is warmer than the outside air. Well, the same thing happens with greenhouse gases. The sunlight comes in, falls in, and the greenhouse gases act like the glass in thing, and they trap the heat into our troposphere, or the lower part of our atmosphere. And in the past, we've had just enough greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide to keep our planet warm enough so that it was good for us. But the problem is we're having such a vast accumulation of greenhouse gases that we're literally starting to cook ourselves. And that's the problem that we are struggling with. How bad can it get? Yeah, how it can get worse. So we really need to start to act. In California, we've been suffering enormously from wildfires. I moved from Illinois, where I was active with Jeff Garris. I moved to California. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, you can plot the graph. It's just like the carbon dioxide. It's exponentially, the wildfires, acres burned, the number of wildfires and so forth has been, going up and up and up. And so there is definitely a problem there. Can we solve the problem? Yeah, we can. Here's a 2,000 megawatt size solar power plant in India that was set up for, and globally there are 62 power plants that are larger than 200 megawatts. And 200 megawatt, to give you the thing, is when you have a nuclear reactor, typically there comes in set of 5 usually, and each nuclear reactor is usually 200 megawatt. And so that's the size. We have 60, as of January of this year, we had 62 globally, that were larger than 200 megawatt. And there are very large, significant number in the United States and in India and China and in other parts of the world. So solar energy can really do it. One thing I want to point out, I looked at these solar power plants and you can see how many square kilometers they take up. And I then went to the International Energy Agency, the IEA, and I looked at, they gave in their World Energy Outlook for 2017, they gave how much total energy the world consumed. So I ran through, being an engineer and a scientist, I ran through the calculation, and on less than 1% of the world's surface, you can generate all of the energy of the world, not just the electrical energy. For the world, electrical energy is only 12% of the total energy you use. The rest, 88%, is all the other energy uses that you do, non-electric. But on just 1% of the Earth's land area, not talking about the ocean area, land area, you can make all the energy of the world. The question is storing it and using it at other times. And that's where things like Walt was talking about, like hydrogen and ammonia, come into play. Because if you can use solar energy to make hydrogen, and hydrogen is H2, and it's there in water, which is H2O, and so you can use it in a carbon-free fashion. So the energy transformation I'm talking about is, like I said, all of the world's energy can be produced with solar panels, the solar photovoltaic panels, the kind that people use on their houses so they can generate electricity, on less than 1% of the Earth's surface. And I immediately got myself solar panels on my house here in 2018. I got a 30% tax credit, and my electricity bill went to zero. So enormous financial benefits are there for switching to solar energy, and solar energy has become the lowest cost energy source. That's the other reason why we should be switching to solar. So we'll have plenty of clean energy. We can replace most of the fossil fuels we use with renewable energy. It'll clean up our environment and give us plenty of energy. We can electrify most of the things where we use fossil fuels. And we can store renewable energy in batteries so that instantaneously, let's say right now, if the clouds come over, then batteries can immediately kick in because they are tied to our electrical energy system. So they can instantaneously compensate so that's to smooth out. And then early part of the evening also, you can use some of the battery energy. We can store some of the renewable energy in hydrogen and ammonia or non-carbon fuels. I've introduced the concept of solar electric hydrogen highways. We have 110,000 gas stations in the United States. We can replace them with about 110,000 10 megawatt solar electric hydrogen service stations where you pull in, you get your vehicle charged electrically, or they supply you hydrogen for your fuel cell cars. So again, like I said, I have plans in there for a global level and these other nations, including the European Union of 28 nations. There's sources and there's sinks, and we'll get into this as we get into education. Some things are contributing greenhouse gases and some things are absorbing it. And so I talk about these three different types of carbon. There's green carbon, which is what you're familiar with, forests, trees, plants. There's blue carbon, which is greening in use as a terminology. It's what's absorbed in coastal ecosystems. What you don't see offshore, the fishermen know it pretty well, and people who are involved with coastal ecosystem know it pretty well. Our Bay Area has a very beautiful ecosystem called eelgrass. It's buried in the water, but it absorbs carbon quite a bit. And then there's brown carbon. If we transform a form of agriculture, we can have our soils absorbing more carbon. The soils can be more fertile. It'll benefit agriculture also. And so I'm saying most of the sources from fossil fuels can be reduced a significant amount, and whatever is remaining, you can then absorb it with these natural carbon sinks, which will make the earth a lot more beautiful, which will help biodiversity. We are in the 6th most massive extinction of the species of the planetary history. We have to reverse this tremendous loss of species that is occurring right now. And this will be, besides solving climate change, will also help us stem that biodiversity loss, by expanding, globally reforesting the earth and expanding coastal ecosystems. We need the economic transformation, and that's the big challenge. People have to eat. The rich have sometimes too much, more than they need to eat. But rest of the people need livelihoods. And so what I'm proposing is a totally global industrial transformation for the world and for the United States that is pro-employment and pro-environment, is done in such a way that can employ more people. It's a just transition so that you help people involved in fossil fuel industry to transition to other jobs, and you help them through that process. And that's where just transition comes in. Energy democracy is where you help the lower strata of society. How do you come up with these economic and financial and developmental instruments so that you make that happen? And then there's the global Green New Deal. Most folks have heard about the US Green New Deal. We can educate you on that and show part of my book kind of outlines how we can do a practical implementation of the Green New Deal. So whatever we come up with has to be quantitative, it has to be actionable, it has to be time-bound, and we have to get it done by 2050. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is these thousands of scientists throughout the world, that have come up with these reports all the way from 1990 till now are telling us that we have to get our carbon emissions down to essentially zero by the year 2050, and then the other emissions also down, like methane and nitrous oxide, so that we keep the Earth from getting the global average temperature rise to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. We need global disaster risk reduction, because even as you're seeing now, our climate-related disasters are devastating us. We're having an increasing wind speeds with hurricanes and typhoons. Our coastal storms are getting worse. Tornadoes, you're having multi-cell tornadoes in each tornado cell. That seems to be happening with global warming. We're having catastrophic floods. Sometimes entire nations have been getting flooded. Wildfires go away, but then they leave these barren hillsides. And if you have excessive rains, like it has sometimes happens here in California in winter, with the barren hillsides, which are burnt out areas, there's nothing to hold the soil. And if you get a heavy rain, you get a landslide, heat waves, droughts. So we need organized, systematic plan for disaster risk reduction. The United Nations has an activity called UNDRR, but it's not large enough, and it needs to be done globally. And then the United States needs to have a systematic, organized, year-long activity for disaster risk reduction. My website I established is Brighter Climate Futures. I also have a Facebook page for YouTube and YouTube things. If you type in Brighter Climate Futures, Hari Lamba, you'll see somewhere between 6 to 8 videos that I've already posted. I'll ask in future educational sessions to ask you folks to view one of the shorter ones. There are some longer ones which are very interesting, but you have to have a half hour or an hour for those. Anyway, the book is available. You can order that from Regent Press, or you can order it from Amazon, or you can order it from Barnes & Noble, or as an ebook if you're computer savvy. Anyway, this book is available. Like I said, I would like you to have a copy of the book, and that would be very good, because sometimes we could do some educational sessions where we could, cover a particular chapter of the book. Anyway, Open Climate University is basically, we can do all these things, and we can, I'll transfer a little bit to the flip chart, and we can look at your feedback. We can cover the science of problems. We can cover the science of solutions. We can cover the solutions themselves. We can cover terminology. They keep throwing out these terms like net zero and carbon neutral and so forth. What do these terms mean? Understanding what's going on, events. If the United States government comes up with a climate action or an clean energy activity, explaining that activity, or explaining what the Green New Deal is all about, or explaining my plan for the United States, the Lamba plan, if you want to call it. I don't want to really call it the Lamba plan, but it's the plan that I have proposed in my book. Career exploration. There can be enormous opportunities here for you folks for careers. There can be guidance, volunteering, advocacy, which you can do. All of these activities usually require some form of legislation to be passed, or some kind of activity in your city government, or, and then your personal actions. I can be proposing each time we do something. I have a particular proposal for you today for some very simple personal action that you can do, and which we can get into later. And what can you do to reduce your own carbon footprint, and which will help yourself, and in many cases help yourself and your family financially. both Jeffrey and myself, Jeff Garris and myself, have gotten solar panels, and we know how it's the best financial investment you can ever make is solar panels for your house. And anyways, so personal actions that you can take, that would be great. And so with that, I'll end the formal part of this presentation. And let me stop the sharing of the screen. I can share it with you again if you have questions for it. What I'd like to do is to maybe switch to the flip chart, and that I've specially prepared for this particular event, and basically switch to that, and we can both take notes as well as can you see the flip chart? Okay, all right.
I can.
Yeah. This is Open Climate University, and it's so that we may have brighter climate futures. We need to be doing this. And so what I would like to do is, I've been struggling with what sort of scope, content, format to do this in, and based on that, I would actually start to do a little bit of a better setup and be a little more professionally organized to be able to conduct these sessions. But other thoughts that I might like to initially give our students a little priority to begin with, especially if some of your students, the students who are here, if you would like to say what are some of the kinds of things you would like to be educated about, that would be helpful. That's the kind of feedback I'm looking for, and we can, use this flip chart to talk about things and take notes about things that you might want to talk about, or if you want me to explain something, I can also do it over here. Would someone one of the students like to take a start and talk about what are some of the things they'd like to see? Anyone? Haley, you want to go ahead?
Thank you so much. I was really interested in what you were talking about with alternative energy, and I think that I would really like to learn some of the science, especially about alternative energy like solar power and wind power also, as well as like the obstacles that have been faced with like policy and economics that have gotten in the way of like using alternative energy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we certainly can get into that. We can get into solar, wind, geothermal, and other forms of alternative energy. Typically, quantitatively, solar and wind are the most quantitatively big, but there is geothermal, which uses the temperature in the earth if there are hot rocks buried at an accessible height, and you can use that to generate steam and run electrical power plants. So anyway, we can do that. And obstacles, yes, both the obstacles that have been posed legislatively and at the utility level, but also the things that are becoming available and the opportunities that will become available if you have a favorable government that can, what are some of the incentives, financial incentives and regulatory incentives and those kinds of things that can be done to remove obstacles from the implementation of alternative energy. So those are things. And again, we can get to it at whatever level you want to. For example, we can look at the science of solar, and then the science and technology part of it. But then we can also talk about the administrative, the financial, and regulatory and legislation aspects of alternative energy, and that hopefully will help you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Haley. Other comments from other students? This is your opportunity to speak up and tell me what you would like to hear.
Okay, I guess I can go next. First off, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot about how greenhouse gases work and also how to help the earth out by basically solar energy. I think I'm gonna ask my parents to invest in that now because it'll help the environment and also help us save money. Something that I would like to hear about is carbon capture technology. I don't know a lot about it. I know that it's basically capturing carbon, storing it somewhere, and then that helps out the earth by releasing less carbon dioxide.
Yeah, we can certainly cover carbon capture and storage. There's also carbon capture use and storage, CCS or CCUS, and carbon capture and storage is typically you either while you're emitting it at a power plant or an industry, you're emitting carbon dioxide. Instead of letting it go to the atmosphere, you capture it, and then you find a geological formation somewhere close by, and you bury the carbon dioxide in like that cavern, which is underground. So there's the carbon capture, and then there's the storage, so that it's not getting released. Carbon capture use and storage is where you take carbon dioxide and you use it up. Like people are actually using it. This is maybe not an ideal use for it, but they're using it to enhance oil production in oil wells. The carbon dioxide gets involved, but it gives you more production from the oil well. So, but anyway, there's these different technologies, and we can certainly cover those because even President Biden has said that they're going to be looking at those technologies. So we can certainly look at that and see both what the potential for those technologies are, and also how much they can absorb and what the cost is. And also there's each of these carbon capture technologies will themselves require a certain amount of energy. And, if we can start doing, for example, if we can start making solar panels with renewable energy, we won't be having any carbon emissions. People keep saying, oh, you can use solar panels, but they give you carbon emissions. But if you can make solar panels using solar energy, then you don't have the solar panels emitting, carbon dioxide in the manufacture. So anyways, so we can certainly get into that. So the second one we talked about is, carbon capture and storage. And there's, like I said, there's CCS and CCUS. Can you folks see these on my screen, or should I be using a bigger pen?
You can see them fine.
You can see them? Okay. All right, so that's the second one. Would one of the other students like to go ahead and talk to what they'd like to hear about? Either Cynthia or Linda or Jennifer?
Well, I think for me, I would just like to know more of how the effects of human creations have made, for example, you've been talking about landslides and wildfires and such. So I was just wondering how, the things that we do affect and how those how they're created. So like hurricanes, how does that happen from the things that we do due to like the use of a lot of like fossil fuels and stuff? How can that affect us, and like how does it create all these climate changes to happen? Sort of just, that's just what I'm wondering more about.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of in a sense the cause and effect between what is causing these things to happen. So there's the aspect of cause and effect of climate change, and that we can certainly get into explaining that as to why some of that happens, and what happens as the planet temperature, the greenhouse gases tap heat, and the temperature increases, and what does the temperature increase do to the climate patterns, and what does it do to the amount of heat and drought which cause wildfires, and what does it do to having increased precipitation so that you get heavier and more catastrophic rains. So we can get into explaining the science of that. Certainly we can do that, and that would help you better understand what is happening, and also where it's happening. Different parts of the world get affected different ways based on their location. So we can certainly do that, Cynthia. Yeah, thank you. Oh, okay, sorry. The next one, anyone? Kate, Jennifer or Caitlin, anyone else? Otherwise, Steve Hoffman, we are very fortunate to have a high school teacher who's very highly regarded. And Steve, I've spoken to Steve a couple of times. Steve, do you want to talk about what kinds of things would be beneficial and desired by your students?
Sure. I think the things that have been mentioned so far have been great. And I think, just sort of understanding the cause and effect, because there's been so much misinformation and disinformation, or just lack of information in recent years. And I think just the basics, like Christina had mentioned, I think also understanding, I've had guests, for example, come in and talk. One was from the Factory Farming Awareness Coalition, and they talked about just the environmental effects of diet choices. So I think, sort of empowering the students to see what they can do. Another mentioned, talking to her parents about changing the house to solar energy. So I think sort of that empowerment, because it's, it's sort of a distant problem beyond what they can immediately do, unless students now are given concrete things that they can do. And so I think that's going to be a really important component, is here are the things that you can do right now, and sort of the things that are right on the horizon that you should start learning about. So, and I think you definitely have that in your view. And I think that's just, the students don't know what's out there, how to act. So making sure that they see those possibilities, I think will be very powerful for my students.
Oh, okay. As Steve was mentioning to me, I think that a lot of people don't think that we have a tough situation globally. And so they're saying, maybe it's not that bad a problem. And you certainly have been hearing that from certain parts of the political spectrum. And I'm not going to be trying to get political about this. And I think this is not an issue that is left issue or a right issue or a center issue. It's actually a human issue, and there's nothing socialist or capitalistic about all this. I'm actually talking about a lot of innovation, a lot of research and development, like for developing the hydrogen economy, laying out hydrogen service stations for infrastructure, businesses, new types of businesses, but doing it in a way so that for a change, instead of you having capitalism that is helping only the big people, you have something capitalism that's helping the people at the bottom, and I think a lot of the opposition sometimes comes with some of the misinformation, and I have a whole chapter in my book, and I can have that as an educational session about how do you refute false arguments. There's something called the Tobacco Institute approach. I don't know if you folks ever followed what the Tobacco Institute tried to do for 20 to 30 years to convince us that, hey, tobacco smoke is actually good for your health, And that approach has been used. It was used for the ozone layer, when we found out that chlorofluorocarbons were destroying the ozone layer that gives us a shield from ultraviolet light that is damaging to all living things, and now it's being used for climate change. So anyways, there's some of that activity, and what are some of the activities there, and to kind of convince people. I was getting the impression that people were, there's a certain spectrum of people. They're young folks like some of yourself students, young couples actually, who have said that they don't want to have children because they were so alarmed that at the other end of the spectrum, they're so alarmed they don't want to have any kids because they don't know the future that their kids are going to face, And I thought myself was thinking, when I started in 1991 and 92, when the initial global warming treaty was signed, I was active in Chicago. And I thought, this would take many decades and many centuries, but I can tell you, it's occurring faster and faster compared to what was projected in the first IPCC assessment report in 1990. Things are accelerating. And in my lifetime, it's not a question of me just doing things for my kids and my grandkids. Things are accelerating so fast that they're going to be affecting us. And so if I'm worried about my own hide, but in a matter of years, in a matter of a couple of decades, things could get really bad. And so it's not just a question of what's going to happen, maybe in the next century or something like that. It's happening faster. So we do need to be concerned about it. But for the first time, I gave talks for about 10 years in Chicago as part of a nonprofit group. And it's for the first time, I found that there were very significant solutions that are available to us. We just have to get organized globally, convince ourselves, and then start to apply the pressure at the city level, at the state level, at the national level, and then at the global level, to be doing these kinds of actions, and we will be, like I said, much better off. Okay. Somebody else would like to, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering, a lot of this stuff that's in your book, which I have a copy here, and I think a lot of this would be covered, say, for students to be covered in science classes. I'm thinking this could be very overwhelming to young people, and it certainly has been to my generation. People think it's so complex, so massive, there's no easy way to see how you go forward. I'm just not going to worry about it. I just can't deal with it. It's not my problem. And so it's easy to tune out. But I'm thinking, if you're approaching high school and college students, particularly at college level, they could go, if we can find material that is missing from the typical economics 101 curricula and say, okay, how do we finance things, and how do we put a price on carbon? What are the different ways of doing that, and how that would work with the economy, and also how to have clean energy in a just way. How do you bring that down to people who have less income? Like, not everybody could afford to buy solar panels, but there's ways around that problem. And maybe some of this goes into, like, in high school civics class. How do we make public policy, and how do we make public policy for environmental issues? So, I mean, there's a lot. I'm throwing a lot out, but I'm just realizing, as a scientist and engineer, that it's not just technical. We have the solutions, but how do you work with people, and how do you work with your congressmen and your local reps, to influence policy, because we have to scale it up. It's not just me putting solar on my house. It's like thousands of people putting solar on their house. And how do you make that work? And we've been working hard on that in Illinois since you left, Hari. So we're trying to get new legislation passed, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think all the science here is fascinating, and I'm really glad to see all of the questions from the students. I very much enjoyed biology when I was in high school as well. And another thought that I have, I think because I'm a little bit older, but maybe some of the high schoolers are thinking about this as well, is the background learning is great and fantastic, but how do you go to learn about how to actually find a job in renewables or clean energy or in a related field? Just how would you go to where you can make your own contribution in this field?
Yeah. Well, that sounds really good, Christina. I saw a little suggestions. I saw a comment from Haley regarding non-renewable waste and like plastics and so forth. Plastics is a very significant issue from the viewpoint that it does use a lot of fossil fuels and use oil mostly, and emits significant amounts of greenhouse gases. And at the same time, plastics create enormous problems, especially for sea life. They say about 1.5 billion masks have entered. The masks that we use for COVID are now in the sea. And so we solve our problems, but we dump it on the rest of the planet. And you have these zones occurring in the ocean where you have basically, you can just see nothing but plastic waste. And of course, all the animals get caught up in plastic waste and so forth. So plastic waste, in every time I see a plastic bag flying around, even though it's a COVID-19 time, and I know it maybe is not the desirable activity to do COVID-19, I still can't resist picking up that plastic bag, because that plastic bag is going to be flying around the planet and is going to go and hurt some animal. But non-renewable waste, I think we are at a point where we can be close to a 90% recycling economy, and we can create enormous jobs in cutting down on plastic non-renewable waste and recycling everything. South Korea does a great job in recycling paper. The United States need to step up its